Ladies, let me tell you something right now. Men are simple creatures. They don't want you to know that, but I'll say it for them. They walk around puffing their chest, acting like they're strong, acting like they're in control. But underneath all that, baby, it's nothing but ego. Big, fragile, glass-like ego. One wrong word, one wrong move, and boom, that balloon pops. And here's the part they don't want you to know. When you know how to handle that ego, when you know how to poke it just right, you can make a man love you like he ain't never loved before. See, most women make the mistake of babying that ego. You cater to it. You fluff it up. You stroke it every 5 minutes like it's a cat on your lap. Oh, baby, you're so strong. Oh, baby, you're so smart. Stop it. He already knows you think that. That ain't special. You got to flip the game. If you want a man to love you madly, you got to learn how to bruise that ego. Not destroy it, bruise it. Just enough to wake him up. Just enough to remind him he ain't the only king on the throne. Let me break this down. A man walks into a room thinking he's the hottest thing in there. He believes everybody should be watching him, clapping for him, praising him. Now when you walk in, don't you dare feed into that circus. Sit pretty, act unbothered. Let him notice that you're not impressed. Oh, baby, that's when his head spins because every other woman is clapping for him. But you're sipping your drink, fixing your nails, talking to somebody else. That little bruise on his ego right there. That's the seed. That's when he starts asking himself, why she ain't paying me no mind? What's wrong with me? I need her to see me. And now you got his attention. Next thing, you challenge him. Don't make everything easy. Men fall hard for women who don't just hand over their approval. You gotta let him know he ain't the only star shining in the sky. Correct him when he's wrong. Laugh when he says something dumb. Don't be scared to tell him, boy, you thought you did something, but let me show you how it's really done. That little sting, that little pushback, it drives him crazy because now he's fighting to prove himself to you. And men love to prove themselves. It's built into them, but the minute you make him feel like he's already conquered you, he's done working. Let me tell you another trick. Praise him selectively. Don't give it all away. If he does something good, don't clap for the bare minimum. If he takes out the trash, don't throw a parade. If he brings you flowers after you had to hint 3 times, don't fall on the floor crying. Look at him like, that's cute. But when he really shows up, when he really goes beyond, when he really proves he sees you, that's when you light him up with your approval. That's when you let that smile hit your face. Because that's selective praise. That's the high he'll chase. And trust me, he'll want to keep earning it. And let's talk about mystery. Don't let him think he's got you all figured out. A bruised ego means he realizes he doesn't fully have you, and that drives him wild. Cancel plans sometimes. Tell him you're busy. Even if you're busy is sitting in the bathtub with a glass of wine and some candles. He don't need to know that. Let him wonder. Let him question. That uncertainty makes him work harder, makes him fight for your time, your attention, your love. Now don't get it twisted. I'm not saying crush the man's soul. I'm saying bruise that ego just enough to keep him humble. Because when he's humbled, he puts in effort. When he's humbled, he realizes you're not like every other woman he's dealt with. You're not just handing over your heart because he showed up with a smile. You're making him earn it. And men value what they earn. Ladies, I'll say this, and let it sit with you men. Fall in love with women who don't let them get too comfortable. They crave that chase. They crave that mystery. They crave that challenge. And when you know how to work that fragile little ego, when you know how to bruise it just right, not break it, bruise it, you'll have a man who don't just like you, don't just care about you, but loves you madly. The kind of love that keeps him awake at night, wondering what he's got to do to keep you. When it comes to men, the first thing you have to understand is that their ego is like their heartbeat. It's what keeps them moving. It's what keeps them feeling alive. And the crazy part is it's fragile. You might think a man is walking around full of confidence, chest out, head high, like nothing can break him. But in reality, most of that is built on how people treat him, how much praise he gets, how much validation he's used to. And here's where a lot of women go wrong. They feed it. They see that ego, and they think the way to keep him is to stroke it, to flatter it, to keep telling him how special he is, how amazing he is, how different he is from everybody else. The problem with that is the more you feed his ego, the bigger it gets, and the less he feels like he has to do for you. Because now he's already full, he's already satisfied, and he thinks he's conquered you without ever lifting a finger. The secret isn't in feeding his ego. The secret is in starving it. You starve it with indifference. You let him see that you're not falling for the same tricks that every other woman falls for. You let him know that just because he walked in with a nice smile or a nice suit or a nice car, you're not impressed. That's the first bruise to the ego, because a man is used to women giving him applause for the bare minimum. He's used to being admired just for showing up. But when he runs into a woman who doesn't give him that applause, who doesn't hand out compliments like candy, suddenly he's off balance. He starts questioning himself. He starts wondering, why isn't she reacting the way everybody else does? Why isn't she impressed with me? That small dose of indifference is what gets his attention, and that's when he starts to work harder to prove himself. When you starve his ego, you're not being rude, you're being smart. It's not about insulting him or cutting him down. It's about not overfeeding what he already has plenty of. Think about it. A man with a big ego walks into a room and he expects validation. If you give it to him right away, you're predictable, you're just like everybody else, and he puts you in the same box. But if you hold back, if you give him nothing, or better yet, you give him the vibe that you don't even see what he thinks is so great, he's suddenly intrigued. He's suddenly in competition, not with another man, but with himself. He has to figure out how to get your attention, how to win your approval, how to stand out in your eyes. And once a man starts chasing that, you've already flipped the power dynamic. Indifference is powerful because it makes a man realize he doesn't own the room just because he's in it. He doesn't automatically win your heart just because he's handsome or smooth or funny. Indifference makes him realize he has to earn it, and men value what they earn. They fall harder for what they have to fight for. When you don't feed his ego, when you give him nothing to feed off of, you're forcing him to dig deeper, to try harder, to reach higher. And that's when he gets emotionally invested, because now he's not just thinking about himself. He's thinking about you. He's thinking about how to impress you, how to matter to you. You also have to understand that indifference doesn't mean cold. It doesn't mean you don't smile. It doesn't mean you don't talk. It doesn't mean you don't engage. It means you don't invest where he hasn't earned it. You don't react like he's the best thing you've ever seen. You don't drop everything to respond to his text right away. You don't laugh at every joke that isn't funny. You don't compliment every little thing he does. You show him that your attention is valuable, that your praise has to be earned, and that just being in your presence doesn't automatically mean he's won you over. That's starving the ego. That's where you draw the line between being one of many and being the one he can't get out of his mind. And the funny thing is, when you do this, when you pull back, when you don't feed him like everyone else does, he doesn't get bored, he gets hooked, because men are wired to conquer. They're wired to chase. They're wired to prove themselves. And when you give them nothing, that challenge wakes them up. They can't stop thinking about why you're different, why you're not impressed, why you're not giving in. That's when his ego goes from being comfortable to being hungry. And guess what he's hungry for? You. Every time you resist the urge to feed his ego, every time you choose indifference over instant validation, you're reminding him that your love, your attention, your approval isn't cheap. It's not for free, and it's not given to just anybody. That's when he realizes he has to do more, be more, show more. That's when he starts putting in the work, and the more he works, the more attached he becomes. That little bruise to his ego makes him want to fix it, and the only way he can fix it is by winning you over. And when he finally feels like he's made a dent, when he finally feels like he's cracked that shell of indifference and earned something real from you, that's when he doesn't just like you. He loves you, and he loves you madly. When you really want to get inside the mind of a man, you have to understand how much he ties his sense of self to being right. Men live for that moment when they can say, "See, I told you so." They thrive on the idea that they're the smartest in the room, that their way is the best way, and that their word is final. But here's the problem. If you let him believe he's always right, if you let him walk around unchecked, he will never respect you fully. He will get too comfortable, too sure of himself, and that ego of his will swell up to the point where he feels like he doesn't have to try anymore. That's why one of the most powerful ways to bruise a man's ego, just enough to keep him on his toes, is to challenge him. Never let him think he's always right. Now, challenging a man doesn't mean nagging him or arguing just to argue. That's not the point. It means you don't roll over when you know he's wrong. You don't bite your tongue when you've got something better to say. You don't let him dominate the conversation or the decision-making just because he's used to being the loudest voice. When he says something that doesn't make sense, you call it out. When he brags about something that isn't really that impressive, you let him know. When he acts like his way is the only way, you confidently show him another out. That little pushback, that little sting of realizing he's not the ultimate authority, that's where the ego gets bruised. And here's the beauty of it. Men secretly love it. They'll act like they don't. They'll puff up. They'll try to defend themselves, but deep down it excites them because most women won't do it. Most women are scared to challenge a man. They think it'll push him away. They think it'll make him lose interest. But in reality, it does the opposite. It draws him in. It makes him respect you, and it makes him obsessed with proving himself to you. A man who feels like he's always right doesn't have to fight for anything. But a man who feels like you see through his act, who knows you won't just clap for him without reason, suddenly realizes he has to step up. When you challenge him, you also show him that you're not intimidated. That matters, because men respect women who aren't afraid to stand their ground. If he says something ridiculous and you laugh instead of nodding, that sends a message. If he makes a bold claim and you counter it with facts, that sends a message. If he tries to dominate you with confidence and you calmly dismantle his argument, that bruises his ego in the best way possible. It makes him see you as an equal, not a follower. And men don't fall madly in love with followers. They fall for women who challenge them, who make them better, who don't let them coast on empty charm. Think about it. If every time he speaks, you agree, if every time he suggests something, you go along, if every time he brags, you applaud, then what separates you from the rest? Nothing. You become background noise in his life. But when you're the one person who will look him in the eye and say, no, that's not it, or actually, here's a better idea, you stand out. You're different. You're unforgettable. You're the voice that rings in his head long after the conversation is over. That's what makes him crave you. That's what makes him love you madly, because you challenge his mind, not just stroke his ego. Another layer to this is how you challenge him. It doesn't always have to be serious. Sometimes it's playful. Tease him when he messes up. Joke about how he thought he was the best at something, but you did it better. Laugh when he tries to act too smooth and trip him up with a clever response. That playful challenge bruises the ego in a way that makes him laugh, but also makes him want to try harder. He wants to prove you wrong. He wants to rise to the occasion. He wants to win back that ground he lost when you checked him. That competitive streak kicks in, and instead of getting bored, he gets invested. Challenging him also builds attraction because it creates tension, and tension is magnetic. When he feels like you're not just going to bow down to everything he says, when he feels like you're sharp enough to push back, that tension keeps him coming back for more. He doesn't know what to expect from you, and that unpredictability is exciting. A woman who always agrees is predictable. A woman who challenges him keeps him guessing, and men get addicted to that kind of energy. Now, don't misunderstand. This isn't about tearing him down. It's not about making him feel worthless. It's about balance. You bruise the ego, you don't shatter it. You make him realize he's not the king of every situation, but you also let him know when he does get it right. You don't deny him his wins, you just don't hand him victories for free. And when you give him that balance, when he knows he can't always win, but he can sometimes, he values your approval 100 times more because it's real, it's earned. It's not empty validation. So when you see him strutting around like he's untouchable, don't just smile and nod. Check him. When he's spitting out something that sounds good but makes no sense, call it out. When he's bragging about being the best, find a way to remind him there's still work to do. That's the bruise his ego needs. That's what makes him chase your respect, your attention, your love. Because once you show him that you're not another woman feeding his ego, you're the woman who challenges it. He won't just want you. He'll need you. One of the biggest mistakes women make when it comes to men is handing out praise too freely. You think you're doing something sweet. You think you're showing him love. But what you're really doing is making yourself predictable. Men thrive on the chase. They thrive on the challenge. When you give him praise for every little thing he does, when you make him feel like a hero just for showing up, you're feeding his ego instead of controlling it. And when his ego is constantly fed, he doesn't feel the need to keep earning your attention. That's why selective praise is such a powerful tool. It keeps him guessing. It makes him chase your approval. And it bruises his ego just enough to keep him hungry. Men want to feel appreciated, yes, but they also want that appreciation to mean something. If you clap for him when he does the bare minimum, he's not going to value your praise. He's going to take it for granted. He's going to start expecting it. But if you hold back, if you're careful with your compliments, then when you do give it to him, it hits differently. It feels rare. It feels special. It feels earned. And that's what drives him crazy. Because men place value on what they have to earn. Think about it. If he takes out the trash, why are you acting like he just saved the world? That's basic. If he finally texts you back after ignoring you all day, why are you rewarding him with a sweet reply? That's expected. But when he goes out of his way, when he shows up without you asking, when he does something thoughtful that proves he's been paying attention to you, that's when you let him see your smile. That's when you tell him you appreciate it. That's when you let him feel that warmth that he's been chasing. Because now he knows he had to work for it, and that makes him want to work for it again. Selective praise works because it creates contrast. If you're praising everything, nothing stands out. But if you only praise the things that truly deserve it, he starts to see your words as valuable. Your approval becomes like gold. He can't just stumble into it. He has to earn it. And the more he has to earn it, the more effort he puts into the relationship. The more effort he puts in, the more emotionally invested he becomes. And the deeper that investment goes, the more he can't stop thinking about you. It's not about withholding love. It's about training his ego. You're teaching him that your attention and your admiration are not freebies. They are rewards for effort, for consistency, for growth. And that does something powerful to a man. It makes him respect you. It makes him look at you differently than he looks at anyone else. Because most women will praise him just to keep the peace, just to keep him around, just to stroke his ego. But you're setting a standard. You're letting him know that you're not impressed with the bare minimum. You're only impressed when he shows you the kind of man you can actually admire. Another part of this is timing. Don't rush to praise him the second he does something right. Let him wonder for a moment. Let him question if you even noticed. That little space of uncertainty stings his ego just a bit. He's wondering, did she see me? Did it matter to her? And when you finally give that praise, it feels bigger. It feels more meaningful because he had to sit in that moment of doubt before getting what he wanted. That's the kind of thing that sticks in his mind. That's what makes him crave more. And don't just praise action, praise effort. Men are addicted to the idea of winning, and when you acknowledge effort, it makes them double down. If he tries something new to make you smile, even if it's not perfect, that's when you let him know you appreciate the thought. That encourages him to keep trying, to keep pushing, to keep improving. And the more he tries, the more attached he becomes, because he's tying his sense of success to how you see him. The trick here is balance. Too much praise and he gets lazy. Too little praise and he feels defeated. But just enough, given at the right moments, keeps him on the hook. It keeps him striving, keeps him improving, keeps him obsessed with earning more of it. You're essentially rewiring his ego to be dependent on your selective approval. And once that happens, you're the one in control. It also builds attraction because it creates suspense. He doesn't know when you're going to praise him. He doesn't know what exactly is going to earn it. And that uncertainty drives him. It keeps him alert, keeps him invested, keeps him engaged. He's not just coasting through the relationship on autopilot. He's awake, he's aware, he's tuned into you because he knows your approval isn't guaranteed. And when he finally gets it, when he finally hears those words or sees that smile, it lights him up. It makes him feel like he's conquered something worth conquering. Selective praise also sets you apart. If he's used to women showering him with compliments, and you're the one woman who doesn't do it unless he truly earns it, you become unforgettable. You become the voice he respects the most. Your words carry weight. Your attention carries power. And once a man starts valuing your praise over everyone else's, he's hooked. He'll keep working for it. He'll keep craving it. And he'll keep loving you madly because you're not just feeding his ego, you're shaping it. Mystery is one of the most powerful tools you can use when it comes to keeping a man hooked. And the reason is simple. Men can't stand not knowing. They want to feel like they've got everything under control, like they've already figured you out, like they can predict your every move. But once a man feels like he's got you all mapped out, once he knows what you're going to do, what you're going to say, how you're going to react, the thrill disappears. His ego convinces him that he's conquered you, and once he feels that way, the chase is gone. That's why you can't let him think he's got you completely. You have to keep mystery alive. You have to stay unpredictable because uncertainty makes him crave you in ways predictability never will. Keeping mystery alive doesn't mean playing games. It means holding on to your independence, your individuality, and your secrets. Men love to peel back layers, but the moment they feel like they've reached the end, they lose interest. So don't hand everything over at once. Don't let him know every detail about you in the first weeks. Don't always tell him where you're going, what you're doing, or who you're with. Let him wonder. Let him sit in that space of not being sure because that little bruise to his ego, realizing he doesn't have all the answers, keeps him chasing. A man's ego thrives on possession. He wants to feel like he owns your time, your attention, your energy. And when you let him think he has total access, you feed that ego until it gets comfortable, Comfort is where desire goes to die. But when you pull back, when you keep a part of yourself tucked away, when you remind him that your life doesn't revolve around him, his ego takes a hit. He realizes he doesn't own all of you, and that realization makes him want you even more. He starts working harder to get closer, trying to uncover what you're not showing, trying to figure out the parts you've kept to yourself. That hunger, that curiosity, that drive, it comes from mystery. Sometimes it's as simple as not answering every question he asks. If he wants to know everything about your past, don't feel the need to spill it all out in one sitting. Give him pieces, leave out details, let him imagine the rest. If he wants to know exactly how you spend your day, keep some things to yourself. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting the parts of you that make you intriguing. The less he knows, the more he wants to know. The more he wants to know, the harder he works to stay close. Mystery also means not always being available. If he calls, don't always pick up. If he texts, don't always reply right away. If he wants to see you, sometimes you're busy, even if busy means you're at home enjoying your own company. That little space of absence bruises his ego just enough to make him realize he doesn't control your world. It keeps him thinking about you, wondering what you're doing, who you're with, what's keeping you so occupied. That wonder turns into longing, and that longing builds desire. Men fall harder for women who know how to keep them curious. The woman who spills everything, who's always available, who's predictable, she becomes ordinary in his eyes. But the woman who keeps him guessing, who doesn't reveal every thought, who doesn't always say yes, that's the woman he obsesses over. Because she's not easy to figure out, and his ego hates that. His ego needs answers, and the more he can't get them, the more invested he becomes. Mystery also plays into how you carry yourself. Don't broadcast every move you make. Don't overshare every detail of your emotions. A man should never feel like he knows exactly how you're going to react. If he's expecting you to get upset, surprise him by staying calm. If he thinks you're going to chase him, pull back instead. If he assumes you'll always be waiting, let him feel what it's like when you're not there. Every unexpected move keeps him on edge, keeps him alert, keeps him hooked. And here's the thing, mystery makes him work. When you're not an open book, he has to put in effort to read you. He has to study you, pay attention to you, invest in you, and try harder to get closer. That's when he becomes emotionally tied to you because he's putting in energy. Men attach themselves to what they work for. And when you make him work to uncover you, you're not just making him curious, you're making him invested. Mystery also raises your value in his eyes. Think about it. Diamonds are valuable because they're rare, because they're hard to get, because they can't be found just anywhere. When you keep mystery alive, you're the diamond. You're the rare find. You're the one he can't just replace. You're the one who makes him feel like he has to keep digging, keep working, keep proving himself just to get closer to the core of who you are. And that's how you make him love you madly. Not by being predictable, but by being unforgettable. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors with locks. And the key is only handed to those who prove they deserve it. When it comes to a man's ego, boundaries are one of the sharpest ways to bruise it, just enough to remind him he doesn't own you. Men are used to testing limits. They'll push to see how far they can go, how much they can get away with, and how quickly you'll bend just to keep the peace. And the moment you let him cross a line without consequence, his ego inflates. He starts thinking you'll accept anything, tolerate anything, forgive anything. That's why setting boundaries is essential. It's how you show him you're the prize, not the consolation. A man's ego wants control. It feeds off the idea that he can do what he wants and still have your love, your time, your attention. But when you set boundaries, you tell him, no, you don't get unlimited access. You don't get to treat me any kind of way and still expect me to be here smiling. That resistance stings him because it forces him to realize he can't own you the way he thought. That bruise to his ego makes him step back and reevaluate how he moves because now he sees you're not the woman he can take for granted. You're the woman he has to earn. Setting boundaries means you don't answer the phone every time he calls, especially if he's been ignoring yours. It means you don't cancel your plans just because he suddenly decided he wants to see you. It means you don't allow disrespect, even in small forms, to slide without addressing it. Every time you enforce a boundary, you're making a statement you value yourself. And when a man sees that, it shakes his ego, because a lot of men are used to women bending just to keep them happy. But when you're the one who holds firm, who demands respect, who makes him rise to your standard, you separate yourself from the rest. The power of boundaries is that they flip the script. Instead of him thinking you're lucky to have him, he realizes he's the one who has to live up to you. He realizes your time, your love, your attention are privileges, not guarantees. And nothing bruises a man's ego more than realizing he doesn't automatically qualify. That sting, that wake-up call, forces him to start putting in effort because he doesn't want to lose the chance to be with you. Boundaries also create balance. Without them, the relationship tilts in his favor. His needs get met while yours are ignored. But when you stand firm on your boundaries, you make it clear that this is not a one-way street. You expect reciprocity. You expect respect. And when he feels that pushback, it humbles him. His ego takes the hit. And in that humility, he starts to value you more. Because deep down, men admire what they can't dominate. They admire the woman who doesn't let them run wild, the woman who has self-respect, the woman who holds the line even when it's uncomfortable. Sometimes setting a boundary means walking away when he crosses one. And nothing hits a man's ego harder than realizing his behavior cost him access to you. That absence screams louder than any words you could say. When you go silent, when you remove yourself, when you cut off the attention he's been relying on, his ego feels that bruise. He thought he had you locked in. He thought you'd never leave, but your boundaries showed him otherwise. And in that moment, he has no choice but to reflect, to reevaluate, and to decide if he's willing to step up to keep you. Boundaries also build attraction because they make you look like someone who cannot be easily conquered. Men fall for women who are rare. And what makes you rare is not just your beauty or your charm, but your standards. Standards are what separate you from every other woman who will put up with anything just to have a man. When you enforce your boundaries, you're sending a message that you know your worth. And that message pierces his ego like a dart because it forces him to question whether he's enough to stand beside you. That question keeps him chasing, keeps him probing, keeps him striving. Another piece of this is consistency. It's not enough to set a boundary once. You have to hold it every time. Men are observant. They'll test you. They'll push just to see if you really mean what you say. And when you stand firm again and again, that ego of his takes repeated hits, but it also grows respect for you. Because now he knows you're serious. You're not just talking, you're walking it out. And once a man respects your boundaries, he can't help but value you more deeply. Boundaries also protect your mystery, your energy, and your independence. They prevent him from thinking he owns all of you. They remind him that you're a whole person outside of him, and he doesn't get to consume every part of you just because he wants to. That reminder is a bruise to his ego, but it's also the spark that keeps his desire alive. Because men don't love women who are easy to dominate. They love women who stand tall on their own, women who demand respect, women who won't settle for crumbs. Every time you enforce a boundary, you're teaching him how to love you. You're showing him the rules of engagement. And the more he learns, the more invested he becomes. His ego may not like it, but his heart will crave it because deep down, men don't fall madly in love with what comes easy. They fall madly in love with what challenges them, what humbles them, what forces them to rise higher. A man's ego is like armor, thick on the outside, but soft on the inside. He carries it around to protect himself, to project strength, to make the world believe he's untouchable. But the truth is, it doesn't take much to bruise it. And when you learn how to bruise it just enough without breaking it, you unlock a power that most women never realize they have. The secret is in balance. Too much pressure and he'll retreat or shut down. Too little and he gets arrogant, thinking he's already won you without effort. But when you bruise his ego just enough, you keep him hungry, you keep him humble, and you keep him fighting for your love, like it's the most valuable thing in his life. The way this works is by creating moments that remind him he's not in total control. A man's ego thrives on certainty. Certainty that he has you, that he impresses you, that he's the best thing you've ever had. But the moment you disrupt that certainty even slightly, you put him in a position where he needs to prove himself again. That's when the fire lights inside of him. That's when he leans in closer, when he tries harder, when he loves deeper, because now he's not just coasting, he's competing with himself to win your approval and your affection. Bruising his ego can be as simple as not giving the reaction he expects. If he thinks a grand gesture will sweep you off your feet, surprise him by staying calm and collected instead of gushing. If he assumes a compliment will win your smile, let him see that it takes more than words to move you. That subtle shift, that moment where his ego doesn't get the payoff it was counting on, makes him reevaluate. It makes him ask himself, what more do I have to do? And that question keeps him chasing, keeps him invested, keeps him coming back with more effort than before. It's also about balance between challenge and reward. If you bruise his ego by calling him out when he's wrong, you follow it up with genuine appreciation when he gets it right. If you bruise his ego by showing him you're not impressed with the bare minimum, you follow it up with warmth when he finally gives you what you deserve. That balance is what makes him hooked, because now your approval isn't predictable. It isn't cheap. It's something he has to earn, and when he earns it, it feels like a victory. His ego may take hits along the way, but those small victories feed his desire to keep going, to keep proving, to keep loving. A bruised ego is also the fuel for devotion. When he realizes he doesn't automatically have you, when he feels that sting of knowing you're not easily conquered, he becomes restless. He can't get comfortable. And comfort is where most men start slipping, where they start putting in less effort, where they stop chasing. But with that bruise, with that reminder that you are not his possession, his mind stays on you. He thinks about what he needs to do to win you over again, how he can keep your attention, how he can make sure you're his. That restlessness turns into obsession, and that obsession becomes love that runs deeper than anything he's used to. The beauty of bruising his ego is that it shifts the power dynamic. Instead of him thinking he's the prize, he realizes you are. Instead of him feeling like he has the upper hand, he starts to feel like he has to catch up. And the moment a man feels like he has to catch up, the moment he realizes you're the one with the power, he invests more than just his time. He invests his emotions. He invests his pride, his energy, his future. And when a man invests like that, he doesn't just like you. He doesn't just care about you. He needs you. Sometimes the bruise comes from silence. Not every move has to be loud. When you pull back instead of reacting, when you choose not to explain yourself, when you let your absence do the talking, his ego feels the weight of it. He expected your energy, your attention, your validation, and suddenly it's gone. That emptiness cuts deep because it reminds him he doesn't own your presence. It makes him think harder about how he's showing up, about whether he's doing enough, about what it will take to pull you back in. That kind of bruise lingers, and it pushes him into action. It also comes from standards. When you show him that you won't lower your expectations just to make him comfortable, that bruises the ego. When you hold firm on what you want, when you don't bend just because he complains or resists, he feels that sting of inadequacy. But instead of walking away, that bruise often makes him rise to the occasion. Because deep down, men admire the woman who doesn't make it easy. They admire the woman who forces them to grow. They may grumble in the moment, but when they step up and meet those standards, they feel proud. Right. And that pride gets tied to you because you're the reason he became better. The key is that you're not out to destroy him. Breaking a man's ego will push him away, but bruising it keeps him close. You're not tearing him down, you're keeping him on his toes. You're reminding him not to take you for granted, not to think he has all of you without effort, not to assume he can relax and still have your heart. That constant reminder keeps him in love because love grows in effort, in pursuit, in the chase. And the bruise to his ego is what keeps that chase alive.